Yes, mate, how's it going? My name's Lee, and welcome back to the FPL YouTube channel, where we try to dominate FPL one game week at a time. This video is all things wildcard. They think your team's a complete disaster and you're already considering playing your second wildcard. This might be the video for you. Subscribe to the channel down below for more FPL content. Anyway, let's rock and roll.
Be strong.
So if you're considering playing a game week 21 wildcard, you need to ask yourself a few questions. First of all, should you play it? Yes or no? How does your team look right now? Is it a complete mess? Have you only got the likes of Salison and Kudos with a couple of red flags? Should I take hits instead of playing my wildcard? That's entirely up to you. It depends how valuable you think a wildcard is, how powerful you think that chip is. For me, it's the best chip in the game, and I would try to hold on for it as long as possible. I would rather take hits rather than play my wildcard. So on the hit note is, how many hits should you take before you start considering a wildcard? If you can play 11 players, I probably wouldn't even play a wildcard anyway. But most people this week are going to be playing -4s to get Haaland back in the team if Haaland is confirmed back. I think anything up to a -8 and -12 is still better than playing a wildcard right now. We don't know what the future's going to hold. We're going to get more information as the season goes on. Very long time between now and the end of the season. I would hold on to it for as long as you can. I would much rather play a -8, getting really reliable, solid assets, rather than playing a wildcard right now. And the main thing you need to ask yourself is, what would you consider to be your dream wildcard team? It's worth jumping on a site like FPL.Team, which I'll leave a link to down below, and drafting up this dream wildcard team. How does that compare to your team? How quick can you get to that team? Is there certain players that you want? Can you take a couple hits this week? Can you take a hit next week and get to that team in a couple of weeks rather than play your wildcard? And these are the main questions you need to be asking yourself. For most people, it's probably going to be no. It's probably like if you can only play 5 or 6 players and you've got injuries and people going off to different international competitions, then you might consider it. For me right now, it's probably not. I wouldn't recommend playing it, and I would hold on to your wildcard for as long as possible. But if you are playing your wildcard, leave a comment down below and let's have a little chat, mate. So you've already played your wildcard, you've already activated your wildcard. These are players that I would consider to be must-haves, not quite essentials. I don't think anyone's essential in this game. But if I'm playing my wildcard, these are the players I want. These are all high ownership, very reliable, proven Premier League players. Looking at Trent and a Estupiñán in defence. Estupiñán's still got about 20% ownership. You know what I mean? Like, the thing is with Trent and Estupiñán, they're both reliable sources of points. Brighton have kept their first clean sheet. That may continue. Both very, very attacking. Get goals, get assists, great defensive options in midfield. Palmer's with the first name on the team sheet, 5.6 million. Still got decent fixtures. Palmer is just a must-have. If you haven't got him and you've got Son and Salah, moving down to Palmer is such an easy move. Onto Jared Bowen, the exact same. Even with the likes of Kudus going off to AFCON and Paqueta being out injured, Bowen is just so talismanic for West Ham. He's just a must-have. Saka's ownership is just sky high. It's about 60%. His ownership's only going to get higher as this week or so goes on. He's just a must-have for me. Very steady Edder. He doesn't get a lot of double-digit returns. He doesn't fall. He doesn't explode. But he ticks away with 7-8 pointers on a regular basis. And that's the reason why I think he's a must-have player. Haaland, I think, is a must-have player. And if you don't include Haaland in your wildcard team, I would leave money in the bank to be able to get to Haaland. I would leave an extra couple 0.2 in case his price increases. I would just keep it in mind, if you don't have him, how can you get to him very, very easily? And that's the reason why I think either Haaland is a must-have or a placeholder, but Haaland is a must-have. This could be anybody else, but as long as you've got the money to get to Haaland very easily, must-have. Watkins, very similar to Saka, doesn't hold very often, but very much a steady header. He'll get assists, he'll get the odd goal here and there, he'll get 7-8 points most weeks. Very steady Eddie player, 8.9 million. I just think he's a must-have player if you are going to wildcard. Do you consider all these players to be must-have players, borderline essential players for a wildcard team? Am I missing anybody? I don't think there's any goalkeepers who are essential or who are must-have. I don't think there's any more defenders, any more midfielders, or any more strikers that are 100% definite must-haves. There's debates around a few players, and we'll cover a few of those later on in the video. If you're on your Game Week 21 wildcard, we've already covered the 7 must-have borderline essential players. There's 7 of those. Who else to pick? You want to pick reliable long-term options. you're playing your wild card now. You obviously don't have another one until next season. Like, this is it. So you want reliable long-term picks that you're going to want to hold for the full season. That's the reason why I'm looking at the likes of Trent, Saka. They're just very long-term holds. You want to try and target teams that have got a good run of fixtures. Brighton have got an incredible run of games. That's the reason why I've gone for Stupinan. You want to have strength in depth, minimum of at least 2 good subs or 2 playing subs. I would preferably have 1 very, very good sub and 1 decent playing sub as a minimum. I think you need at least a decent backup goalkeeper, at least somebody who plays. And something that I always forget when I'm picking teams or making wildcard drafts or even using my own wildcard, stick to the good players or stick to the good teams. Very, very, very easily we move away from this concept and we pick the likes of Burnley players, or I pick Luton players, like, no disrespect to those, and we stray too far away from the good teams and the good players. Stick to the good teams and the good players. That is priority numero uno. Stick to them, trust me. If you want to play wildcard this week, you're going to want solid long-term assets. And the good players playing in the good teams are the long-term solid assets. So what we're going to do now is go through the goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders and forwards, picking my first, second and third best options for each position. I think you need at least some form of Arsenal defensive coverage, whether that's Raya in goal or Gabriel in defence. There aren't a lot of good goalkeepers right now, so that's the reason why I've gone straight down for the budget. I don't think the likes of Alisson and Ederson are worth it. I think Areola at 4.2, second highest scoring goalkeeper in the game. They've kept a lot of clean sheets recently, which has obviously inflated his position within there. But I just think he's such a solid option at 4.2 million. I think he'll keep his number 1 spot, and he's just a very easy pickup. I've only gone for Raya as number 1 just because I think Arsenal are the best defence. Areola is a very, very close second. Dubravka coming in third. Just behind Areola, I think is still a solid pickup. Until we get any more news on Newcastle finding a new goalkeeper, I think Dubravka at 4.2 once again. Newcastle solid defence. They're going to come in some decent fixtures soon. I think it's just such a good pickup. And if you do want Newcastle coverage, I think he's a very, very nice pickup in defence. Gabriel, like I said, is a clear number 1 for me. 5 million. He's 0.6 cheaper than the likes of Ben White and Saliba. I think he's a much better asset. That's the thing with Raya as well. He's only 4.9, so he's even cheaper than Gabriel. The thing is with Raya is that he doesn't get as many save points as he used to at Brentford. So that's the reason why, if anything, I'd probably opt for Gabriel over David Raya if I was going to pick just the one of those. Pedro Porro comes in second, and he's 5.7 million, and he's just coming there, and he's coming second purely down to price. Gabriel is 0.7 cheaper than him. I just think he's a better long-term asset than Porro, particularly for his price. And coming in third is Botman, 4.5 million. I think he is probably the priority first sub on your bench for 4.5 million in defence. They've still got solid fixtures coming up, and he could potentially cover that Dubravka goalkeeper slot. He could cover the Trippier defender, and he's so much more cheaper than Trippier. I think Botman is probably my first pick for your first sub on the bench if you are going to play your wild card. Moving on to the midfielders. First up, I think Foden is the best first pick if you can get to him. Price is the only thing that's probably holding you back. But Man City have just got such a good run. He looks like he's going to be nailed for minutes, and he just looks so sharp and electric right now that I think Foden must be, like, he has to be number 1. On to Jota. I think he's a little bit of a gamble, and hopefully we get some information tonight when it's Arsenal versus Liverpool today, and he starts and he plays well and he gets some minutes. And Jota might be a very, very decent pickup at 7.7 million, and he could easily replace Salah in that team, and he could take his slot and play really well throughout that period. And last but not least, we've got Richarlison, and he's only third on this list. And due to the fact that they've just signed Timo Werner, we don't know where Werner's going to play. We don't know where Richarlison's going to play. Are they going to impact each other's minutes, and they're just going to basically share the minutes like Isak and Wilson? In that case, I don't like it. So that's the reason why Richarlison is third as opposed to first. I'm not sure about his minutes, and that's the reason why he's there. If you want any more forwards, I think the best first pick is Solanke. He's solid, he's reliable. Bournemouth playing really well. He's playing really well, and this is like I was talking about before. Pick the good players or pick players playing in the good teams. Solanke is a good player. He's on form, playing really well. They've got a few tough fixtures coming up, but after this point, they've got a nice little run, and then further and later on the season, they've got a ridiculous run of about 10 games. Like I was talking about before, pick reliable long-term assets that have got a good long-term fixtures. Solanke fits the bill very easily. Tony is second, but a little bit of a gamble, but we all know how good he can be, and I just wanted to throw his name out there and get people thinking about Tony. They don't have the great run of fixtures, Brentford, but like I was saying a moment ago, good players, pick good players. I'll pick good players in good teams. Tone is a good player on penalties, and if he can get back even to half his best, half of how good he was last season, he'll do perfectly fine. Third on the list is João Pedro, 5.4 million forward, playing for Brighton, who've just got an insane run of games, about 10-11 fixtures. On penalties, looks like he's almost guaranteed for minutes. Doesn't look like he's going to be dropped anytime soon. I think he would make the perfect first sub option. If you don't want to go for a botman, I think João Pedro would be perfect for that, so he can come in, play the odd game here and there, but we all know that Brighton like to rotate, and it might be a constant headache. Have I missed anyone from the goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, or forwards who you would consider on wildcard? Leave a comment down below if you think I've missed anybody. So on that note, this is my full wildcard draft. The team comes in at exactly 100 million. We've got Areola in goal, 4.2 million, 34.7% owned. Still got Matt Turner on the bench. It looks like Matt Turner's going to keep his spot in the Forest team. 3.9 million, that's exactly what I want. Cheap playing goalkeeper. 8.1 million for my 2 goalkeeper slots. Perfect. Got Trent in defence alongside of Stupinan. Both have got very, very good ownership. 28% and 18%. And the next row that I think is the best third defender is Gabriel, 5 million, 17.5% owned. You can see I've got Botman as first sub and Van Heck as my number 2 defender on the bench. They both play, they both start. That's exactly what I want from my bench. In midfield, we've got Palmer, Saka, Jared Bowen. I've gone for the Richarlison punt. It's a little bit of a gamble, but I think the thing is with wildcard, as long as probably 8, 9, 10 players are relatively template, you can take a couple of gambles. And my 2 gambles are Richarlison and Jota. These are positions that you can kind of play around with budget a little bit. Like you could maybe get to Foden at 7.8, take Richarlison down to someone else. If Elise was fit, you could go for someone like an Elise, but it looks like he's going to be out for a little bit. Up front, we've got Haaland and Watkins with Chris Wood on the bench. 4.9 million. I've gone for him just because I just like what I've saw over the past few weeks, and I think he's a very, very solid backup forward. You don't have to spend too much. I just think 0.4 million more is a considerably better asset than the likes of Archer and anyone else around that price range. And we've got those reliable, solid assets all over the pitch. This wildcard team comes in at 100 million. And the thing is with this is that I've made this team from scratch. So if you've built value up in any of these players, this team value will be obviously higher. Played the game from the beginning of the season, you've built value up in certain players, and you've got money left over in the bank. So you could easily move some things around. Like you could easily upgrade the likes of Richarlison into a Foden. If your team values is 101 million, like you could easily move some things around and make the team better in certain areas. I've stuck to 100 million for anyone that's starting the game at the midway point. Like now, if you're making a brand new team from scratch, this is the kind of team I'd be looking at. I'm looking at high ownership players. I'm looking at very reliable players, solid players, and then taking the odd gamble here and there. The Richarlisons, the Jotas, even a Foden on the side as well. Right, mates, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. So today went through all things wildcard. We asked the main question, should you play it? That's up to you, and I can't answer that question for you. Should you play your hits? I think you should play hits rather than play your wildcard. How many? That's up to you. I would play at least a -8. I would even consider a -12 in certain situations. If you are going to wildcard, try and target those reliable, solid, long-term players and really try and target those. Stick to the good teams and the good players would be my main advice. And then we try to cover a full wildcard draft team, solely focusing on that 100 million budget. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and leave a comment down below. Have a good day. Peace and love.